Yes, that's right, we are back. And today I'm pretty excited because I've received a package and I'm hoping that inside is the new Christopher Hiett board. Now in this video I want to unbox this board, take a look at the various features and the graphic, and then most importantly get it set up and get out there and skate it. Now Christopher first came to my attention because I was watching the YouTube and I saw a trendy looking dude riding around on a proper old school looking red deck. After a little bit of research, I found out that red deck was an old Steve Sayce board, and I think this deck is based on that board with some modern tweaks. So without further ado, let's get into this package. I think somebody's had a little poke around in here before. This was sent over from the United States of America, and there's a packing slip from the Skate One company, so many thanks to them for sending this over. And inside we have some mini logo grip tape, which we're going to need, and most importantly we have the deck. This has come in a rather nice looking black packet and it's got a picture of the board on the front. Never had one of those before. It's also got the details of this board, and that reads the DKPP Pro Flight 310 9.5 K26 Chris Hiett Skull board. Now, I think K26 refers to the concave and Flight refers to the construction of this board. Obviously it's a pro board. PP stands for Powell, Peralta, and obviously Chris Hiett is the name of the pro skater in question. So let's see if I can get into this guy. Oh yeah. Oh, and that is reassuringly pink. Oh, and there she blows. So we've got a serial number up there. We've got Flight written across the top with the Flight logo. A rather magnificent looking graphic with some blue foil details in there. The Christopher Hiett signature and also Powell, Peralta, and then the artist's signature there. I'm going to get into this artwork because it's been heavily thought out. On the top we've got this secret glass fibre stuff that they put in the Flight construction, and there's usually 2 plies of this stuff with 5 plies of the plywood. So we've got the usual warning on the front saying that if it all goes wrong and you use it incorrectly, it could end emotionally. And there's also a product warranty from Skate One with some details on where you can go should the deck not perform as you fancy. So I'm going to get this wrapper off, and this looks reassuringly 80s. Oh my goodness. So you can see that, bit of a wrestle and a tussle. That's an easier way to do it. And there she blows. That is a lovely looking signature. Blue foil. And then as we come up, we've got a heart on there. Now Christopher made a really detailed video about how this graphic came about, and also all about how the shape came about. So I'll put a link to that in the description below, because it's probably better that you go and check that out and get all the details from the horse's mouth. But I believe the heart is because the artist that did this artwork was going through a little bit of health problems to do with the heart, so that's quite a nice feature. It's also something that Christopher really likes as well. The jack in the box, Christopher talks about, it's quite symbolistic, and also you can see there's a resemblance to Christopher there, got a similar sort of hairline, and that is a really sick graphic. The pink I absolutely love, hot pink. On the top there is no logo, as with all Flight boards they tend to not have any graphics because this is the sort of glass fibre stuff. Now as I understand it, the tail of this board is pretty much identical to the Steve Sayce Pro board, and then as it comes through to about the centre, I think that's where things change up and we get this new nose which looks amazing. Christopher talks through all the various different tricks this nose is tailored towards, but I think it's quite refreshing because this board seems to balance really nicely because it's got a similar nose and tail. And looking at this, I'm thinking this is very similar to the concept used for the Winkowski board. I've got that board, and that very much started life on the back end as a Kendall snake and then went right through to a more modern nose, a more usable nose. So I love the idea of having these old school shapes and then having a bit more usability thrown in. So coming through the front foot, that looks like a lovely big place for the front foot to go, with a nice bit of a more modern concave than those old school decks. The tail looks right up my street. I reckon that'll be great for tail blocks and great for carving around. I'm going to take this guy into the pool. I'm going to hopefully take it a little bit onto the streets, do some curb stuff. Anybody that's watched Christopher ride will know that he's a bit of an expert on the spine, so to give the spine a go with this guy. He's also a bit of a street expert. I don't think there's anything he can't do, to be honest, but I'd be interested to see how this board goes in the bowl. I'm going to pop some rails on this, my usual Santa Cruz slimline rails. I think the white rails will look absolutely tickety-boo on this. I'm going to pop the 159 Indy trucks just because they're my go-to trucks on a 9-inch-ish deck. And I was thinking of going for some slightly smaller wheels. I'm going to go for 55mm Spitfire OG Classics on this. Enough of my yakking. Let's get cracking. I'll see you on the other side. Well, there she blows, all finished and looking pretty splendid. These flight decks are a little bit thinner than a regular deck, so I like to pop the rails on first, and that affords me the opportunity of going back and knocking off the tips of any of the screws that poke through the top of the flight deck. Once that's done, I can pop the grip tape on, safe in the knowledge that it's all nice and flat and will provide a good and safe finish. I can't wait to get out there and give this one a go. Okay, I've managed to get a couple of sessions in, and I have to say this deck is a lot of fun. I started out on the curb, and this deck is an absolute treat for getting the slappy board slide going. I found there was loads of room for my back foot on that big fishtail, and also my front foot, and the flight deck construction felt really solid under the feet and sort of slapped in an absolute treat. The Santa Cruz rails, as usual, performed nicely and were sliding with ease. And overall, I found this board worked a treat for street style stuff. So anything involving a bit of a slappy, maybe even dropping off of curbs and ledges. And my son JJ put it through its paces, doing his usual 180 drop-offs and also his boneless 180s. I also experimented with a little bit of freestyle, and it was refreshing with the 159 trucks that this board would stand in primo and tolerate a bit of a rail stand. Now, it took me a bit of practice because it does wobble a little bit. It also works a treat for other freestyle tricks. I did a bit of research, and Christopher actually uses the 159 Indy trucks. So I think it's quite nice to use this board with the setup as it was intended to work. Now, when I took this board down to the bowl, that's where some slight differences started to occur. I usually ride the 7-ply construction with a 15-inch wheelbase, and this board has the 14.63 wheelbase and also the flight construction. And I found, just to start with, when I was pumping around the bowl, it was easy to over pump. This board's super responsive, so I found that all my usual pumping effort was getting over amplified, and it was possible to spoon out a couple of emotional moments trying to hook into 50-50 grinds just by overcooking it. Also, that wheelbase worked a treat when I got used to it, and it was possible to get some nice carving turns and some carved grinds. But again, I think I'll just have to take a little bit longer to get used to the overall feel of it. Now, the board worked a treat when going over the spine, and I managed to get my usual spine transfers pretty much first go. There's also a nice generous nose, and things like rocking over the spine and also doing fakey rocks and nose pivots all worked an absolute treat. And I reckon if this deck is as successful as I think it should be, there's every chance that Powell will make a 7-ply version. And I'd be really interested to try this deck in a 7-ply construction. Anyway, enough of my yakking. Let me know what you think about this deck in the comments below. As ever, my name's been John Bishop, and I'm a middle-aged guy learning how to skate.